Right.
Thank you, Hannah, for joining me today for this wonderful opportunity just to talk to you about your business. You are the owner of a global business called Beaumont Organics, which is essentially a sustainable clothing business, women's wear primarily. I know that you've sort of ventured a little bit into baby wear recently. But what was so interesting about you when I met you was, I know that you set this business up sort of over a decade ago. So way before its time, way before sustainability became hip and cool and sort of more mainstream. And I was so intrigued because you actually created a business out of something that clearly you're deeply passionate about. And I think your story in itself can inspire lots of people out there who are maybe thinking about doing something out of the box, but are afraid to do so. And also to talk to you about sort of some of the challenges you faced as an entrepreneur and a business owner during COVID and lockdown and all of the restrictions that that's had on your business. And hopefully to share some words of wisdom with whoever may be watching this who feels like they could do with some inspiration right now. So can you share with us a little bit about your sort of motivation and your philosophy behind Beaumont Organics and what led you to start it off, you know, sort of over 10 years ago now?
Yeah, I'd love to. So thank you for that introduction, Hannah. So yeah, just to kind of paint the picture a little more, we have been trading now since 2008. So as Hannah said, kind of slightly before the curve of kind of organic and sustainable living being kind of trendy, if you like. And really, I started it for two reasons. I was working and had worked only ever in fast fashion. So I'd done my internships at kind of like JD Williams. I'd been down to Topshop. I'd then got a job at Monsoon. And I knew I wanted to do something creative within the fashion industry because I had a massive passion for clothes and for fashion. And I kind of thought that I would remain in that sector and kind of, make my way up my career path, probably become like a buying director.
Yeah.
And only after having been working at Monsoon for a year, I realised that even though I'd gone to Monsoon being a slightly more outwardly looking bohemian company, and I thought that their ethics would be much more kind of humble than the likes of kind of Topshop and the slightly faster fashion companies. I realised quite quickly that it wasn't, and really the industry is just fraught with issues. You're constantly negotiating with factories to cheapen the products, to get cheaper prices, bartering people down, using lesser quality yarns, using yarns that are terribly damaging for the environment, dyeing things in ways that are toxic for the local people that work near there and live near there, the factories. And I just thought that it just wasn't for me. And I decided back then, which was like 2007, that if I was to stay in the fashion industry and to pursue a career in this industry, I had to do something that I'd be proud of and that I'd be happy to talk about transparently the whole process, and that I could buy and wear with a clear conscience, knowing that it's been made correctly, everyone's been paid fairly, everyone from the farmer to the person like making the garment, has had a fair process. So I just decided that I would try and go on my own and just make this product that would be clean and also be beautiful and that would look really beautiful, as well as having a clean conscience. Because back in 2007, 2008, actually you could buy a few kind of hemp trousers and you could buy a bit of eco clothing, but it didn't look very beautiful. Yeah. So I didn't really want to wear it. So I just thought if I could create something that was beautiful both from the production side of it and also aesthetically, then surely other people would want to wear that product too.
Right. There's this kind of assumption that if you're talking about sustainable clothing and you mention hemp, people have this women have this connotation that it's that fuddy-duddy kind of looking fabric color-wise and feel-wise, and it's not fashionable. Because that's the thing about fashion, and the industry is very much driven towards how you look now. It's not, people generally aren't educated to buy smartly or intelligently, i.e. you build a capsule wardrobe with pieces that actually are timeless and that you can wear for years and years and years. The fad, and very much so because of online fashion businesses too becoming so big, is that you buy it now and you just dispose of it. which is
Yeah.
the opposite to what you've created.
Yeah.
And you know, the impact that you mentioned on the environment is just so important and so underlooked, isn't it, in the fashion industry? That isn't at the forefront of anyone's mind really when they're buying.
Yeah, and actually the end process, so the fast fashion industry has caused such a massive impact on the end process, because we have such volumes of clothes that we can't then get rid of at the end, and that's then going into landfill or they get burnt, and that's also super toxic. So if we all just slowed down and bought less, you know, but bought really good quality pieces that you love and you're going to wear for years, then the whole circle just improves so quickly.
And you actually release your first sort of collection.
Yeah.
What was the response at that time? Because you were ahead of your time, you know, like we said, sustainable fashion's become the buzzword now, but sort of 12, 13 years ago, you were probably one of the only companies in the UK doing it at that time. What was the response?
It's changed massively, thankfully. I mean, I feel so blessed that I've been doing something all this time that I really believed in and always trusted, and that eventually it's become actually quite a sought after product. But that wasn't my purpose for doing it. My purpose has always been because I believed in it, so I thought people would buy it. And actually, to be fair, that's how it started at the very beginning. So obviously very difficult to sell over the phone. You know, if I rang a buyer up and said, you know, I've got this ethical, sustainable clothing brand, they'd be like, no, we're not interested.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So oh God, yeah, because people just thought it was like some hempy, horrible, you know, the kind of, because you used to be able to buy, we still can, in quite kind of quite specific stores that would also have a lot of the products we have in our home now, but not decorated very well. So, you know, lots of incense, lots of crystals, but just not curated beautifully. Like, we're all buying all those things for our house now, but in a very modern, nicely curated way.
Yeah.
So I basically got in my car after probably about a month of trying to call round stores, and I just started driving from down the country, going to shops and showing clothes. And I was like, look, they're amazing, they feel really good, they wash really well, you know, I'd always wear something of mine, and I just started selling it like that. And we ended up in that year over 40 stores in the UK.
Wow.
All just having like a few pieces, like 10, 20 pieces, not loads of stock, but all trying it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I hadn't done that, there's no way I would have got it out in the UK, because the UK market is tough, actually. And we're one of the slowest concerning kind of ethical and sustainable living. Like, the rest of Europe is so much further ahead of us.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. We do have a massive high street culture, and there's a really big online culture here as well for fast, cheap fashion.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much choice. I think we're quite overwhelmed by it, and I don't think the culture is very conscious. So I don't think in general people are very conscious of their own well-being. I don't think people are taking enough time for themselves, and because we're just running all the time, you're not really thinking about what you're buying, and then you're buying stuff that's either not good quality or not made from good fabrics. And whereas in other countries, I do feel like they're at a slower pace, they're taking more time for themselves, they're doing more kind of holistic things, which then result in you being more conscious about what you're purchasing.
Okay, so it's about slowing down and just sort of thinking responsibly about what you're bringing into your space, into your energy, and what you're wearing. Yeah.
And it goes to everything. I know, if you're buying like a new vase for your house, you know, it's everything. Anything that you're bringing into your world, you should think consciously about that purchase, because you don't just want to quickly buy things because then, one, you might want to get rid of it, which means that it's really wasteful, and two, you might not love it. And if you don't want things in your life that you don't love.
Right. Okay. And I think that's something that we just commonly don't have that association with. Clothing is very much it's just for right now.
It's like a quick commodity, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't look at it as something that's meaningful and something that we're going to cherish, you know, because it's just so vastly available. And when you're looking at fast fashion and you're able to go and get a top for £4, even if that's going to be thrown in a bin in 2 months' time because it's washed really badly, for a lot of people that's a much easier choice than spending £30 on something similar but that might last them for 2 years, because we're not, when it comes to fashion particularly, we don't think about long term, do we? And I think companies like your business are so important, because the trend is shifting in that I think people's awareness is now changing. So people are much more willing to engage and at least have a conversation about it. And I think that's so important, particularly in the UK, because I agree with you. I think we're so behind, which is why I think what you're doing is so important. Do you find that what you're doing is actually appealing to a younger generation? And by that, what I mean is sort of the 20-year-olds. Who is your core customer?
Well, it's really interesting because they're saying, and we do see a bit in our store in Manchester, the kind of Generation X younger customer who's been like following us on Instagram and it is wanting to kind of get involved with the brand. They're not quite ready though. There's partly because of finances, I think, but also they just want to learn more. So they're really interested in like following the brand and hearing about the story and things, but they're definitely not our core customer. And I don't think they will be for a little while longer, because our core customer is very much the lady who has got a bit more time on her hands. So slightly older lady who's happy to read up on things, who's really willing to invest in clothes that are going to last for a long time, because she doesn't want to keep changing her wardrobe. She wants to invest in stuff that's going to be there for years, that's really good quality, that's an easy fit, because as we are all getting slightly older, we want to look comfortable, we want to feel comfortable, but also look great. And so I think that's like a key part of the kind of slightly more mature ladies' thought process when buying clothes.
I've seen your clothing though, and I think it's amazing. You're only 6 yourself, and you wear all of your clothes. So we're not talking about 40 or 50-year-old women. We're talking about the time of their life who want to look beautiful, but can do it in a sustainable and conscious way and make their own contribution to the environment. So how much of your own daily way of life is built around sustainability and sort of incorporating everything you've encapsulated in work on a personal level because your home is beautiful, it's full of light, it's natural. I see so much wood and plants and beautiful things. So I really feel like you've built a beautiful environment at home that really matches what you're doing at work.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. It's all encompassing. And I think if you can kind of surround yourself and immerse yourself in that kind of lifestyle that you feel really comfortable in, then it just makes it all flourish and it makes it all work so much better. And I would say that I live consciously, basically. And I am very sustainable in a lot of our choices at home, well, most of our choices at home. But I think if you can live consciously and be thoughtful about your purchases, then you will become quite sustainable, because you'll do things differently. My daily routine, like in the morning, it's quite strict. I get up every morning and I have like a really similar pattern every morning. I always come downstairs. I always do my yoga. I always do my journaling. It's like that is like the way the day starts. And my journal's like, what are you grateful for today? What's going to make today good? It's like a really set routine I have every morning. And then when I can, I cycle to work to try and like get fresh air and energize my body, which is also a really important part of like our lifestyle. And then just shopping locally. And I've always tried to shop locally, but I think now more than ever we can support the local trade, because our greengrocers is still open, the butcher's still open, the fishmonger's still open. And just, trying to support all the local people around us during this slightly more challenging period, but also after. And, buying really good food that's like well-sourced and organic, and then putting good stuff in your body so that you feel great. And I also grow a bit of my own stuff. So I grow my own mint and fennel and chive and rosemary, loads of herbs. And even though that's also good to eat, the therapeutic process of planting the stuff and being outside and, making sure it's well maintained each week is also really good for your mind, just like being in the nature doing it. And then, I guess our home was pretty much reclaimed and renovated by us using all natural fibres. So it's a really, really nice space to be in, because it's pretty much all natural. And obviously we painted it all white, and it's all like a very nice like foreign matte white, so it's really fresh. And And I think if you can surround yourself with as many things as possible, like it's not possible for everyone to do all of those things, but even if it's just doing your breathing in the morning, and then making sure you have like a really good herbal tea each day, or small things that we can all do easily. And it's just being that bit more conscious each day that can make your life just so much happier.
I mean, I love the fact that you do your journaling every day, because I've certainly realized for me, when I've stopped doing it, my little morning routine, which is, even with the kids, I can do it. My little I listen to my meditation music, or I listen to the mantra for the day, and then I'll do my 5 things I'm grateful for. And then I'll always include something that I'm grateful for about James, and then each of the boys, and they're part of that every day too. But I know I can feel the psychological difference when I've done that continuously. So it is a huge thing. And a lot of people say, I don't have the time, but actually you can just create the time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, most of our friends have kids, and I realise they're in such a different life than we're in. But I should get up in the morning. You can literally, like, my journal won't take more than about 2 minutes. You can just scribble it down, and then scribble it down in the evening, like before the kids are even awake, or on the toilet if you can't do it anywhere. Just make time for it, because it is so important to just have that focus on yourself, and then reflect at the end of the day that actually today all I wanted to happen was to sit outside for an hour in the sun and have my lunch. And if you managed it, then that's been a good day.
Right.
So, just, it doesn't need to be big things, does it? It can be small things that you're grateful for. Often it is. It's the small things that are the things that make us happiest anyway.
No, gorgeous. And I really hope that, because that's sort of been a bit of a concurrent theme in what I've been discussing and hearing from other people, not only yourself, which is there seems to be a pattern. Those amongst us that are sort of just a bit more conscious and aware, we seem to have more of these spiritual practices sort of intermingled into our daily lives. And I think just something as basic as gratitude is so powerful, and should not be underestimated. One of the things that's really always fascinated me about your business is the impact that fashion has on the environment. And it's something that's been particularly troubling for me as I've sort of looked a bit more into it. It's actually really concerned me how many communities are being massively impacted by what you refer to as fast fashion. So the toxicity and like dyeing and all these kind of things. In your experience, what have you seen in terms of some of the worst sides of that, and how are your processes designed to stop that from happening?
Well, a lot of it is coming from lack of regulation, sadly, and it's in the poorer countries where there aren't any rules regarding where they can dispose of the toxic waste, how many people can work in the factory at a time, whether people can sleep in the factory, the age of the people that are working in the factory. So sadly, in countries like Bangladesh and China and India and various countries around the world. And I'm not saying there aren't good factories in those countries, because actually there are good factories in those countries that you can go and work with, and that are doing things correctly. But sadly, there's also a lot that aren't. And it's generally speaking in those countries that then they're not respecting the environment around them. They're not even respecting the people. So, I mean, the environment's so low down on the list. And then the toxic wastes are going into these rivers and streams where people wash and sometimes even drink from, which is causing the larger scale problems. So, I mean, my advice is really to try and source much more locally and in smaller volumes. Like we're only making in Portugal, and I did that from the beginning because we could buy certified yarns from factories in Portugal, and they're governed by. So it means that everything from the picking of the cotton all the way through to the final garment, the fabric, has been certified. So it's been like sealed by GOTS, which is the global authority for textiles, saying that the farmer's been paid correctly, the land's been treated well, all the process is up to their standards, which is a really high standard. And obviously, if you're buying in Europe, assuming you're working with a good, credible factory, they are working with the government laws in those countries. So they can't just dispose of toxic waste in the local stream. They have to filter it correctly and dispose of it in the correct ways. And I think that that's just a massive difference between, sadly, the more developed worlds and the less developed worlds of the way they're producing it. And unfortunately, the main volumes are being produced in the less developed world, the less developed countries. Hence all the problems that are happening.
Right. So like China, where things are being mass produced, and India and Bangladesh, and we've heard about all, you know, lots of stories about factories and workers' conditions and all that kind of stuff. In my business, we do audits, but part of what we do is ethical audits too, where the team have to go in and make sure that the workforce are being treated correctly, and it's often in countries like this. So it's really interesting, because I feel that that's become more of a corporate policy as well, to not only make sure that commercially revenues are coming in, but that ethical standards are also being followed, because there's just much more visibility on these issues now. You know, with social media and the internet, you can get access or you know, to all of this information. So I think fashion brands probably feel more of a responsibility commercially to be a bit more diligent and pay more heed. But ultimately, it's not really good for profit, is it? Because you can't sell massive quantities of this kind of stuff, because the whole objective of fast fashion is you buy today and you buy something else in a couple of weeks' time. That's how these businesses are run. So it's really important that businesses like yours exist. And I personally have seen such a big rise in companies like yours, not only in fashion, but we talked about furniture and baby wear, because people are making more conscious decisions about what they're spending their money on, you know. I'm just going to go back to my other question. Sorry, I'll edit this out. Okay. So what advice would you give to someone that's thinking about setting up their own business, but is sort of a bit afraid to do it because it's a bit out of the box, you know, like yours was 12 years ago, where you physically had to get in your car and show people the product? What would you advise, for somebody else in your position? Not who wants to do sustainable fashion, but somebody who just wants to do something a bit out.
I think if you believe in it, and you keep believing in it, you can make it work. I mean, it's obviously been a journey, as everyone's entrepreneurial journey is, but I've always kept believing. And I remember in a very early meeting with my accountant when he said, so what's the goal? And I was like, well, to become a global sustainable brand. And he was just like, oh God. You know, I had like 2 shops, I think, at the time. But I just kept believing, and I always remained really passionate. I was so persistent. When I started employing people, I employed people who believed as well. And, you know, I'm just like growing that strength all the time so that we become a force. And I think that it rubs off, honestly. If you believe in it enough, people around you start believing, and then you've got like some power, because you're like, yeah, I can do this. I am going to do it. And you build momentum. So, you know, anyone starting their own business needs to have plenty of drive. So I wouldn't do it if you didn't. But ultimately, if you've got the two going together, then you've got quite a strong force there to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe in yourself, take the risk. What's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is, you know, you've tried and you don't succeed. But every single entrepreneur out there has had lots of ideas that they've tried to make work and that haven't worked. But I think it's so important to at least try and do what you think is important. With everything that's going on now then with COVID, and your business has been impacted, obviously, as has mine, but I know that you've still been really busy and working, because actually your business is now global. How many countries do you actually distribute your product to now, as of today?
Well, we're selling in 18, but we've got 12 main territories. And across that, we've got 5 agents. So they're the core countries, because they're the ones that we're really pushing.
Yeah.
And so for summer, we're in 120 stores. Which has been pretty challenging. And then obviously we've got our own store in Manchester and on the website. But the main challenge was really working with each individual store on whether they could take stock in, whether they were closing, whether they even had cash to pay for the stock. It's been a super busy few weeks, just really negotiating with each store and with our agents to try and help us on what we can do. Because being an ethical and conscious brand, and also me personally, being very active in the business and being the founder, I'm also very sympathetic to the stores, because, you know, I'm the equivalent of them. You know, we've got our own business, I've got my own staff, and I'm very conscious that it's very tough for the shops, and you need to be really sympathetic with the way that it's dealt with, because we need to support them whilst also being conscious that we need to sell some of the clothes to them, because we've got a backlog in our warehouse. So it's been a bit of a like tightrope to walk, but we've gotten over the worst of it, I think, now regarding the stores. Obviously there's a lot of stores, sadly, that may not make it through, because so many small shops just live from one week to the next, and it's scary for them. But, you know, on the other side, a lot of them are strong and they will make it through, and, you know, we're building really good relationships with them now, because we're speaking to them so much more than we ever used to. But on the positive side, actually, the website's been really good. So we've seen a massive growth. I think it'll be our best month ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how are you? Is it just because people aren't able to get access to your product through shops? Do you think that's what's sort of diverged them to the website, or do you think people are just more consciously shopping online now because they can't physically get out?
I definitely think there's been a combination of both. We've had some people say, oh, you know, I usually go to X shop and I can't get there. So we know there is an element of that, but we have had loads of new customers. So I do think there's a lot of Googling. That, you know, we're just at home, we're all on Instagram, social media, even though, like, on the whole, people are trying to maybe be a bit more conscious about how much technology they're using. I think people are definitely up on how much they're using compared to normal.
And your clothing is like super comfy.
Yeah, so it's nice to be at home.
Exactly, and yeah, super beautiful. No, I know, I saw you wearing the plaid black and white dress the other day, gorgeous. And we'll put a little link to the website so everyone can check it out. What I really loved just about everything that Beaumont embodies is there's this wonderful thing on your website, and it's just beautiful, because I believe that this is your mantra for your life, but I wanted to share it with everyone, and it's so beautiful. I think it should be in a book or on one of those framed things. But you say, live what you believe in, realize your dreams and achieve them, be confident and persist, take action, never give up, extend respect, trust, loyalty, integrity, and gratitude to all. And I read that and I just thought, wow, that is so beautiful. Because that's not only the philosophy of your business, I kind of feel like that's the philosophy by which you live as a person. Where does that come from?
I think actually that came from a much longer script that I'd written when I was introducing some of the staff to me into the business, because I wanted them to kind of start understanding a bit more about like my background. And I used to do, well, I still do, like do induction days and like quite like lengthy chats to them when they arrive. And obviously once I've spent some time around me, they're quite clear, but I just think that there's so many parts of that that have reflected different aspects of my life. I mean, I still am. I was dyslexic growing up, and I had to work really hard. I had to be very persistent. I had to be really like driven to get through school. But one thing that I always carried with me, because my parents were always really good at making sure that my confidence was high, and like, you know, telling me they loved me and that I was beautiful. And I think that there's so many different aspects of that kind of sentence that I put together that really encompass like all aspects of life in different ways, and you know, extending that respect and that kind of gratitude to everyone around you goes back to kind of my days where I was working for someone else, where I felt like we weren't really respecting the factory workers. I felt like we weren't really respecting a lot of the supply chain. And, you know, it doesn't matter who comes into your world, whether it be like the postman or the bin man, or whether it's like, you know, some multi-millionaire who wants to, you know, invest in your business. They should all be treated the same. And I think that's what I was trying to get over in that, you know, we should have the same approach to everybody around us, and we should extend the same kind of gratitude to them.
Yeah. Were your parents very conscious when you were growing up? Is that something that you've learned from them, or is it something that you just gravitated towards organically?
No, they're not. They're not particularly. I mean, my dad had his own business growing up, albeit a plastic bag company, which is hilarious now given what I do.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say they were all that conscious. I think I definitely have it in my bones, that kind of eco-ness, because from very young, like in my teens, I'd be wearing like a lot of bohemian clothes and like a lot of linen, and it wasn't particularly fashionable. I was just wearing it because that's what I wanted to be wearing. And I think it was kind of already in me a little bit, that I, you know, like to be with nature, and that's where I feel most comfortable. But I mean, I don't think either of them have got any particular, neither of them are very spiritual. I'm actually trying to help them become more spiritual and just become more aware and just slow down a bit and spend more time thinking about themselves and in their own thoughts and things. So I don't think it has come from that. I think I have got a few friends who are very spiritual who massively helped me on my journey. And I think that the combination of them, and then once you start, it's kind of a bit of like a snowball effect, isn't it? You start bringing people into your life who are similar. Right. It's really interesting. And then it just gets stronger, I guess. So,
yeah. Because when you start to give yourself that self-love, and actually you're consciously thinking about the things that you're bringing into life, that also extends to people. Your circle probably becomes more conscious. It certainly has for me. My circle's actually gotten smaller in terms of, you know, historical relationships, but definitely has expanded with new relationships, you know, that I've built. I mean, I met you through our mutual friend Nikki, who is amazing, you know, on the nutritional side, and we've both done juice cleanses with her. But it's amazing that the more time I started spending with Nikki, I then got introduced to people like you and vice versa. So you're absolutely right. And that's the thing about how we live our lives across all aspects. We may think that something as simple and as small as making a conscious choice about where we're buying our clothes from is just about clothing. It's not, because actually that kind of intention definitely impacts every single other aspect of your life. Because if you're conscious with those things, you're going to be more conscious with the energy you're bringing into your home, with the things that the people that you're surrounding yourself with, because their energy then directly, you notice that too. And I've noticed that in my life, the more meaningful I make my choices, as small as they may seem, in an area of my life that may seem totally unrelated to another, what I realize is it's a snowball effect. And that's why I think what you're doing is so important. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because it's not just about fashion. It's not just about clothing. It's about so much more than that. It's about a way of life, isn't it? It's about a conscious way of living.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I think that there's so many aspects that at different points we can tap into, and, you know, start on that route to just becoming a little bit more conscious about everything.
Yeah. So what parting words can you share or give to anyone who's watching this, who's just maybe going through something right now? With everything that's going on, emotions are high, people are very anxious and uncertain. What words of wisdom can you share as somebody who's going through the process too?
Well, I definitely suggest just taking a moment out to breathe. I've done a few breathing workshops in the last year as well. And when I'm becoming quite stressed with different things, doesn't matter what it might be, whether it's work or whether it's personal things, just like taking a minute and just really breathing and just thinking, actually, it's okay, like it's fine. And, you know, just taking a moment's stock. And also, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but let's try and enjoy slowing down a little over the next few weeks, and just, you know, make the most of this time to reflect, to think about ways we can make changes in our lives, think about ways we can improve our businesses or our lives after. You know, make this the moment that actually the journey starts again for you, and you can go onto a new path if you needed to. Because it's a golden opportunity for that. You know, we've got time now, so we can plan what we want to do, or we can be thankful for what we've already got, and maybe you're already on the right path.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think you're right. I don't think life will ever quite be the same, and hopefully it will change for many people for the better. because we're being forced to slow down, aren't we? And it's lovely in a way that we get to spend so much time with people that we love, because we're not going to be in this situation forever. And I hope that actually, just by even what you said in terms of more people are being driven to buying stuff from you, that because everyone's slowing down, maybe everyone's thinking a little bit more consciously about the choices they're making and where they're choosing to spend, their time. So that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for being with me today. I've loved it. And I will put a link to the website so everyone can go on and look at your amazing clothes, and hopefully join you in the journey in terms of what you're doing.
Fabulous. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.